NCAA cross country is always a great time of year. It's one of those things where there's always so many factors at play with the varying conditions of cross country courses and a team spirit, unlike something you really get from track races, as cool as those are as well. But this year, the NCAA is facing a bit of a problem. And I'll say first off, it's of course not a problem with who the athletes are themselves or anything like that, but rather the entire system as a whole as to what NCAA running is becoming and how it can affect a system that has churned out some great athletes over the course of history. The athletes themselves aren't the problem, but rather it's what the NCAA is doing, or more so allowing NCAA running to become. But before we dive into why the NCAA is changing with all the new addition of East African talent, we should, of course, look a bit more into history. It isn't anything new for runners from countries like Kenya to come to America to compete at the NCAA level. Perhaps the greatest of them all was Henry Rono.
The appearance of another Kenyan from Washington State, Henry Rono, brings the huge crowd to seat A.
A Kenyan that went to Washington State University, and Rono was spectacularly good, winning 3 NCAA cross-country championships. In 1978, Rono set 4 world records in just an 81-day span: 10K, 5K, 3K steeple, and 3K. Rono's move to Washington State later inspired more Kenyans to do the same, including the great Bernard Lagat, who would later go on to represent the U.S. with great success. So it isn't like this idea of getting foreign athletes to come to the NCAA is something that's completely novel. In fact, plenty of schools have programs that focus on recruiting athletes from overseas, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. After all, the NCAA does allow this, and it gives a great opportunity for those athletes from other countries to come over, get an education, and develop their athletics career. And there have been some incredibly good international athletes that went through the NCAA system. A pretty good example, and one of the fastest runners in her event right now, is Jessica Hall, who went to Oregon after beginning her athletics career in Australia. The point is, international athletes have for a long time considered the NCAA system for development, and there have definitely been those who have went on to achieve a lot of success after that. Just recently, NCAA cross country has seen champions from other countries take the crown. Edwin Kurgat, Morgan McDonald, Edna Kurgat.
Edna Kurgat is going to be your champ.
McDonald taking the NCAA title.
Edwin Kurgat, your 2019 NCAA champ.
There's a lot of foreigners that win NCAA titles, especially in cross country. So why is there a bigger problem in the NCAA now? Well, the issue that some people are having is the addition of foreign talent has gone, well, too far in terms of the caliber of athletes that are joining the NCAA system now. One of the biggest additions this year was Solomon Kipchoge, a huge favorite for the NCAA crown already, as the freshman from Kenya headed off to Texas Tech. And Solomon is already competing at a professional level with previous results to back it up. A 59:37 half marathon that's faster than any American has ever run that event. And it doesn't just stop at him. A group of East African talent joining the NCAA this year has already added to the existing talent there, and races, well, according to some people, are not super entertaining anymore. I mean, to be fair, I understand where these people are coming from. You have guys joining the NCAA system that have broken 60 minutes in the half marathon, running against kids who have just graduated high school. And while those young college kids are great athletes, it's a completely different league. Obviously, this new talent will be at the front of the pack with the best of the best collegiate athletes. But even with the best domestic talent developed at the NCAA level, it feels a bit questionable to be suddenly dueling athletes that are already at a professional level from another country for an amateur crown. And while a lot of people might not like the addition of East African talent, I also do think we need to realize it's pretty much already here. OSU became a team that ended the cross-country dynasty of NAU after tying them the year before, with Mayer and Rodriguez leading the way.
NAU comes through. That's a good spot for him. A couple of Cowboys come through.
OSU found a lot of foreign talent next year in Dennis Kipnigetich and Brian Masao from Kenya leading the charge to give OSU an absolutely dominant victory for the 2023 crown.
The first of what appears to be the national champions, Oklahoma State. And we see Oklahoma State, they're getting their second runner across the line. There's third, there's fourth.
Rather than look for recruiting domestically, countries can simply get professional level athletes from East Africa and not have to go through a process of developing them. And it's a bit different than, say, recruiting athletes from Europe or Australia or any other place where they aren't running at this super high level. That's not to say it's all easy for these athletes to come to America from East Africa and dominate the NCAA. Sure, they may have exceptional ability, but there's so much more to life than the running aspect coming over to college here. And the immense cultural change of going from, say, Kenya to America is one that takes a while to adapt. These are college athletes. They do have to go to school. They need to deal with a language that they probably aren't the best at, and that language barrier might make it hard for them to do things socially or adapt to what happens at American colleges. And it's not just limited, though, to life outside of running. It's also the different things like the training environment we have in America. Lack of altitude and the prevalence of pavement everywhere can lead to detraining and injuries. And ultimately, with cross country, there's the races themselves. The courses and locations of championships often used in November can feature really cool conditions that can often be a bit of an equalizer for athletes not accustomed to them. But so far this year, the influx of foreign talent has really been making its mark on the NCAA. We've had course records smashed in times that are seriously impressive for a collegiate runner. Yet it does remain to be seen what happens during championship season and how these new additions to the NCAA shape up against the best NCAA runners already very seasoned with how the system works. You have guys like Graham Blanks and Parker Wolf that are thoroughly impressive runners in their own right, looking for the NCAA crown, going head-to-head with professional level competition from East Africa. And honestly, I think it's an interesting storyline, at least for this year. Obviously, I understand the concern for development opportunities for domestic talent in America, but I do think that this new addition of East African talents could push guys like Blanks and Wolf to up their game even further in order to compete and be the best at the NCAA level, and in turn making them more competitive at the world level and setting them up for professional success. But I do think no matter what, it'll be interesting to see how championship season in cross country plays out this year. If you enjoy breakdowns like this, be sure to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.